Hey, thank you everyone for being here with us today. My name is Basma Alawi, and I am with Community Sponsorship Hub as the Deputy Executive Director. For those who are new to the community conversation, this is a space where we gather regularly to discuss the impact of sponsorship both on newcomers and the American who welcome them. For me, this work and your support is deeply personal. More than 15 years ago, I came to the United States as a refugee, and today I am proud to stand with so many others, fellow refugees, sponsors, advocates, neighbors, and friends who believe in the simple but powerful truth that people fleeing violence and persecution deserve safety, dignity, and welcome. This World Refugee Day is especially heavy. The current pause The current pause in refugee admission and the suspension of the Welcome Corps has left thousands of people stranded. These are people who have been thoroughly vetted. Some worked alongside US soldiers. Some are waiting to reunite with their family. Others are survivors of war, persecution, or displacement who have already spent years waiting for a safe place to rebuild their lives. Now they are being told to wait again, or worse, they are being told they may not come at all. America has both the capacity and the community support to welcome refugees. But right now, many of those doors are closed. So when we talk about refugees, we are talking about real people with real hopes who are being denied safety. And that's why this World Refugee Day and our week of action matters. Because even now, especially now, people are rising up to welcome. Families are rebuilding their lives, enrolling their kids in school, finding jobs, and building community. They are doing this with the support of community volunteers. Since the suspension of the US Refugee Admission Program in January, Community Sponsorship Hub and our partners have continued to fight for sponsorship programs. And we have also continued to keep the spirit of welcome alive. Afghan allies with special immigrant visas are one of the few groups still able to arrive and resettle to the US. They are fleeing terrorist groups and especially vulnerable due to their service to the US military. Families continue to arrive each week, and with the sponsors stepping up in 33 states and DC. Sponsor circles have helped more than 500 allies for their footing and rebuild their lives in America. Now, a travel ban has threatened the safety of thousands more Afghan allies who served alongside US soldiers and thousands of refugees forced to flee their homes and lives in refugee camps or unsafe condition who are also in limbo. In every corner of America, I see people raising their hands to help, saying, "We are ready to welcome." That is what this week of action is about, showing up together in solidarity for refugees and protecting our freedom to welcome. I am honored to be your host for today, kickoff of World Refugee Day Week of Action. We have lots of different ways to get involved, and we will share a recording and links in a follow-up email for those who registered for today's session. Today, we will hear from two incredible guests, one who have sponsored an Afghan family and one who is helping lead the advocacy efforts to reopen pathways. Both are taking important action to protect refugees. First, I'm thrilled to welcome Sam, who stepped up to sponsor an Afghan family and has seen firsthand how powerful and personal welcome can be. Sam actually is a former colleague of mine, and it's a joy to have him join us for today's conversation. Welcome, Sam. Sam, I have heard you working in a large group of sponsors to welcome a family to your community in Wisconsin. We know sponsors have all different kind of motivation for welcome. So let's start there. what really inspired you to become a sponsor?
Yes, well, thank you for inviting me today, and thank you everyone for showing up to learn a little bit more about, some concrete actions you can take in your community to help refugees, help folks with SIVs. So thank you all for being here. Um, for your question, I'm really glad to be having this conversation with you, Besma, because you were one of the main people who inspired me to take this action. I think you had, as you said, we were colleagues. And I think you'd kind of put out a call to action saying you were trying to inspire as many people as possible and as many of our coworkers as possible to kind of take the step into sponsorship. And I saw that and was definitely inspired. And I think the context was, I don't remember if you'd kind of put out the call post-election or pre-election or when it was exactly, but we were kind of feeling uncertain about where the program was going to be, and we weren't sure what the future of it was going to be. And I just felt like now was the time to take action while we still can. And I still think that's true of the program today. We're not really sure what the future is going to hold, but right now we do know that sponsorship is a concrete action that can be taken. It's you can really help folks out in the community. You can help welcome, and it's incredibly heartwarming and invigorating process to take part in yourself too. So yeah, it's been a great experience so far.
Thank you, Sam. And I feel so good that I was able to inspire you. I also have been very amazed by what sponsorship looked like as I became also sponsor in January of this year. And I really encourage many people to come in and become sponsors and welcome and take part of this journey. Also, as part of being a sponsor, we fundraise. And I saw on in your fundraiser where you recently shared that ensuring newcomers have strong start in their new home is a tangible way to stand with them. So I would love also to hear about how fundraising experience have been for you and other sponsors, because I feel like some of the most struggle for many sponsors have been um, just getting to start to fundraise and really put a welcome plan together. So I would love to hear more about your sponsorship experience and if you could describe what it was like meeting the family and help them settle in your community.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with the fundraising piece because I know that can be such like an intimidating barrier to people. You think like, it is a good amount of money you need to raise, but I think that, we're in a challenging environment for immigrants and refugees right now. But one of the positive things I've seen is that people are really willing to step in and they're really willing to give right now. They're looking for ways to support. And, not everybody is able to take the step to be a sponsor, but I think a lot of your friends and your community, people you're engaged with, they want to support you in that work. And a lot of times that might just be financially. So we found that people were pretty generous in what they were willing to give. I was often surprised by the donations we were receiving. So we made a GoFundMe. We put out the word to our, shared on social media, shared it with friends and family, and we were able to get a good chunk of our, the money we needed from that. But I know other folks are, they're doing maybe talks at their churches or mosques or synagogues, or getting out there to the community, just kind of talking about the program, talking about what they want to do, and finding community support in those areas as well. So there's definitely a lot of different kind of ways you can tackle it. But the long story short is I think people are willing to give right now, and they're looking for ways to support, again, the immigrant and refugee community. So I think it's very doable. Um, and in terms of welcoming, it was a wonderful experience. I mean, my background is in refugee resettlement. I was a program supervisor in the reception and placement program. So my past work experience was welcoming people at the airport as they arrived, and it was something I really missed. It's one of the greatest parts about doing that work is just being able to, despite how tired and exhausted people are when they get here, but just being able to welcome them to a new place and kind of be the first face they see as they come to the US. And that was definitely my experience here as well. Just it's really rewarding being able to welcome people to your community and getting to show them around, getting to see the community from new eyes and from their perspective. And so, yeah, it's been a wonderful experience so far. We welcomed a really wonderful young couple from Afghanistan. They have a really sweet daughter. It's been great getting to know both of them as well. And yeah, so it's been a good experience.
So, Sam, I always love to hear surprise stories from sponsors. I know you have experience in the refugee settlement overall, so it's very hard for you to be surprised from things or because of your long experience. But I still gonna ask you this question: what has been very surprising to you in your sponsorship journey?
I think I'm always continually surprised by just the resilience people have when they arrive, and it's shocking to me, like what after what folks have gone through to get here, and back in their home country, so many struggles and so many challenges, but they arrive and they're really eager to um, get to know their new community, to work, to get started in their new lives, and that's just about 99% of the time that's the case with folks I've worked with, and that was absolutely the case with the family I've welcomed. So just seeing yeah, their resilience and their their willingness and ability to adapt to a new community and new circumstances, it's always surprising to me, and it's yeah, inspiring as well. So it's been great to get to know them and to have that experience.
Thank you, Sam. You already explained and shared about how the community have been responding through really donation and supporting you while you're doing with the community the sponsorship work. Um, I'm wondering what other examples you can give about how the community have been responding to your sponsorship work, how they are coming together. I mean, I'm gonna just give an example from myself. We have started a group of, I think over 30 now of not sponsors, volunteers who are supporting the core sponsors and I have been very amazed every time I put there is a doctor appointments coming up for that family, or if there is school registration. Everyone is stepping in and supporting and volunteering to take the family for different activities. And now 5 months in, the community is still supporting and continuing to show up. So wondering what kind of stories you have of how communities have been really responding to your sponsorship work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's one thing I think that's super important is like even if these folks aren't in your sponsorship group, when you see get started, there's a whole community of people who are ready and eager to support you in this effort. So especially now with I think with resettlement where it's at, that there's probably folks in your community who are doing resettlement work, who are volunteers, who are employed in that area, and now they're still looking for ways to help, and that's what we've absolutely found here in Madison. So we've been able to partner with some organizations in our community. Like we had an organization we worked with that helped set up the apartment, and they provided furniture for the family. So us folks in the sponsorship group, we kind of just helped coordinate, but they were able to do all that work, which is such a huge help. Um, Recently, the family we were working with, we were able to connect them with a community member who had a car he was no longer using and he wanted to donate. So they just got a new car, which obviously is such a big milestone and such a huge asset to folks as they're looking to work and just deal with life in America. Um, so yeah, absolutely. The help is there, the support is there. Like I said, you're not in it alone. If this is something you want to do, like just put the word out there and you're gonna have, more support than you probably know what to do with. So it's yeah, people are really excited to help right now, I think.
So Sam, if someone now listening to us and they are thinking of sponsoring, what you would say to them?
I would say do it, of course. I would say it's been such as much as you kind of talked about it at the start of the call, it's been such a challenging year for refugees and the immigrant community, and I just for a lot of people with everything going on in the world and in the country. Um, this has absolutely been the most meaningful thing I've done this year was take the step to be a sponsor. So I'm so glad I did it. I'm so as just selfishly and glad I've been able to have this experience and like have something like a concrete action I felt like I could be taking to support to support the community, to support immigrants and refugees. Because I feel like a lot of us are just feeling like what can we be doing right now, like what's effective, what's 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 maybe not as much not as effective right now. It's hard to know what to do, but absolutely, I'm telling you, this is something you can do right now. You have the capacity to do it. The resources are all there for you. And it's been really meaningful, and it's been really inspiring for me. So I'm sure it would be for you as well.
Um, Before the call started, Sam asked how are we doing at CSH? And I shared that with a smaller team we are now, the work has been very impactful and rewarding. Since the stop work order, we have been really privileged to be able to welcome over 500 Afghans, SIVs, and we are continuing to mobilize for Americans to really join, create a group of 3 sponsors, put an application, and welcome. And as Sam said, you are not alone. You're a group of 3, not alone, because we are seeing many people stepping into support financially and volunteering with us to do this work. And you see it as a tangible action. You are helping a family and making sure that you are here for them. And I'm going to ask you here, Sam, and it seems like sponsorship have been keeping you hopeful during this very, really hard time. What other things keeps you hopeful in this journey?
Yeah, and I think I talked about this a little bit, but just seeing the resilience of folks, obviously with the family we've sponsored, seeing their resilience, but also just, my colleagues, my friends, community members in the immigrant and refugee community. I personally feel like, oh, there's just so much every day you're seeing a story, or there's a change or something that's just pushing you down, but seeing folks continue to push back against that, and to advocate and to fight for themselves just in their personal lives, but also for their friends and their community members. It's like, okay, how can you not be inspired by that? And, obviously take the time to kind of rest and recuperate, but then be inspired and reinvigorated by that energy of folks who are continuing to live their lives despite the challenges they're facing, and continuing to kind of push back and advocate. So that's something that's definitely continuing to inspire me.
Thank you, Sam. I mean, your story is really a reminder that this is it's just a policy. It's people, relationship, and the kind of community we will all want to live in. And it's really a way to say, yes, we are ready to welcome. Um, Sam gonna be with us. So if you have any questions about his sponsorship experience or to connect with him, and his community, and learn about the family that he has welcomed, please feel free to use the Q&A function to ask any questions. And I want to actually now to bring Claire and really zoom out and talk about how we push for change at the national level. I'm very honored to welcome Claire Holba with Patchwork Indie, who have been leading advocacy efforts for sponsors and who helps create the Week of Action Guide. But also, Claire is a sponsor herself as well. So, really, she speaks from her lived experience as well. So, Claire, thank you so much for joining us today. And I want really to start with the big picture. Why is advocacy especially important right now?
Yeah, thanks so much, Fesma. And again, just a great honor to be here and to be speaking during the start of this week of action leading up to World Refugee Day. To take a step back, I think it's important to look at where we recently were and pause with where we are, and then talk about the big hope that there is and the very tangible action steps we can take. Last fiscal year, the U.S. Refugee Program was operating from a stronger position than at any point during the 21st century, with more than 100,000 refugees finding safety and a new start here. And that's something to be incredibly proud about as Americans, as a nation. With the pause of the U.S. Refugee Program, including the Welcome Corps, this has put families in limbo. I know I'm speaking to all of you who are living through this right now. It's put more than 160,000 Americans across the country who signed up to privately welcome refugee families through the Welcome Corps in a position of limbo. And so the executive order pausing the U.S. refugee program, I refer to it because it provides some directives that I think we can follow. So it says the program will resume um, as long as it is in the national interest to resettle refugees. It also calls for states and local jurisdictions to be granted a larger role in determining where and how refugees are resettled into their respective jurisdictions. So we as supporters, as sponsors, and advocates need to, one, demonstrate resettling refugees is in our national interest, two, emphasize states and local governments to have the capacity and willingness to welcome refugees. And so with that, sponsors have a critical role to play by using our voices and especially personal stories to advocate for the importance of this program at all levels of government, not just the federal, but also at the city and the town and the state level too. And there's a real advantage here because sponsors are so diverse. They're present in communities, big and small, spanning the political spectrum all across the nation. Americans in every state, as well as DC and Puerto Rico, have demonstrated their strong and widespread desire to welcome refugees in their communities through sponsorship. There are sponsors in all 50 of these states, in Republican and Democrat districts, big cities, small towns with populations of 5,000. The top states for private sponsorship through the Welcome Corps reflect a broad cross-section of the nation, right? Minnesota, Texas, California, Washington, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Georgia. If each of the thousands of sponsors across the country in these diverse corners and parts of the nation can be ambassadors for the U.S. refugee program, for sponsorship, have these advocacy conversations with elected officials and their staffers, this collectively, can make a big difference.
Thank you so much, Claire. And I am adding to these sponsors, their families and communities, and 160,000, maybe just the ones who have signed up in the application, but each one of these brings full tribe and community. My daughter last 2 weeks were in DC as a 16-year-old turning 17 next year, arrived when she was a year as a refugee in the country, was meeting her elected officials, Congress members, and educating them about the refugee program and the importance of welcoming. So I really invite us to be very creative in educating the community and our elected officials and our policymakers about the importance of welcoming. We're also, as you mentioned, the diversity of our sponsors, we have also diversity of motivation of why sponsors came to this work. We have done a survey of nearly 600 sponsors in the last couple of months, and the most frequent mention on motivation was that helping refugees is an important American value and moral duty. So speaking about these motivations in these meetings is very important to really uplift why America need to continue to be a beacon of welcome to those seeking refuge. Some people might feel overwhelmed or unsure, many, about where to start, especially if they are new to advocacy. What would you say to someone who's wondering if their voice really makes a difference at this moment?
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of those questions and a lot of frustrations of, I'm contacting my elected official and what can be done. I would say, I would underscore your voice absolutely matters. When I have spoken with elected officials about the number of their sponsor constituents in their district who've committed their time and resources to welcome refugee families, I'm almost always met with interest and even some surprise sometimes. There's, a real opportunity still to educate our elected officials and, as you alluded to, our broader community on the numbers we already have, indicating the interest and support for welcoming refugees. I myself am from Indiana, and I recall a celebration of Welcome Corps sponsors that we had, and one of our senators came and had actually written a really wonderful letter of support to sponsors, thanking them for all they've done to make Indiana a more welcoming place to refugees. And I think, it was because of the efforts of those sponsors and their neighbors that really put the community's heart for welcoming refugees on this senator's radar. And so I think this is an incredible example of the power in numbers. And it's about just telling your personal story. Yes, there are recommended talking points of what to say when you meet with your elected officials, and we have toolkits for that. We'll share the link out. But really, it is about you reaching out to your city, county, state, federal officials and sharing your why. Sponsorship, whether you're an official sponsor signing your name on the line, or you're a neighbor who jumped in with a neighbor who's an official sponsor, or a family member who gets pulled in, right? You have a powerful why to share, telling how you got inspired to get involved, and bringing that personal element really does resonate. It can seem overwhelming to do it by yourself. It can seem like you can't make a difference, but that's why we need to collectively move forward. And if, again, the hundreds and thousands of us in all these different locations across the country do step forward and share our story, share our why, then it really, I believe, can make a difference.
Thank you, Claire. And talking about resources, so the World Refugee Day campaign includes things like signing a petition, contacting members of Congress, and hosting community events. So we really have many different ways that you can get involved. And the Week of Action Guide was really designed to give people something concrete to do right now. Even when refugee admission are stalled and the news feels overwhelming, there are several actions we can still take together. And the guide is sorted into 4 areas to give everyone a chance to design a week of action that works best for you and your community. So we are asking people to pick an action each day from the list or create your own activity. So I'm going to go over what the guide includes. So the first one is really educate. The educate call to action is really about learning from refugee stories, whether that's through art or incorporating displacement into your weekly faith service or sermon, or even attending today's webinar. We also have adult and kid-friendly reading recommendation. These are things we can do to really deepen our empathy and understanding. Activate. The activate call to action is about connecting with your community. This really can look like forming a sponsor circle, like Sam shared in the beginning, or hosting a shared meal or community gathering to talk about welcoming. It also includes sharing your why you are sponsoring, why you are welcoming, a powerful way to really turn complex policies or current events into personal experience that can motivate others to join you. We are also excited to share the announcement of the Ambassador of Welcome, which I know Claire will go deeply into it, a new national community of advocates for refugees. And this is an online community-led network by Welcome NST and resettlement partners where you can connect with other sponsors, advocates, and organizations to activate at the local and national level. As I said, Claire will share more about the platform and the network. The third action is donate. So really, this call to action is really to support the work that makes this possible by donating to a national or local organization. It's also include options like visiting local businesses and or restaurants that are owned by refugees, or employing refugees and creating welcome kit for a family in your area. And finally, the fourth call to action is to advocate. We are asking sponsors and supporters to sign a petition and call your elected official to express your support for sponsorship. Decision makers really notice when communities show up and when that Americans' communities are ready and eager to welcome. So Claire, can you walk us through how these actions build pressure and power, especially when it's done together?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's that's the key word, right? Together. We need a multifaceted approach, I think, not just to be effective towards our target audience who we're advocating toward, but also for ourselves and to nourish our own spirits and feel that we are not doing this alone. We are doing this collectively and in community. And so that's really why we kind of hit on these four pillars, right? Educate. Again, as I shared, like continually coming across whether they're an elected official or just a neighbor who doesn't even know the definition of a refugee, and so you find when you even just educate, right, immediately it kind of breaks down some barriers and it's like, oh, okay, I didn't know, and then you can keep the conversation going. I love the activate and the more celebratory components of this. Again, petitions are important, and those very focused conversations with elected officials with our advocacy points. But we also should celebrate the richness of our communities and welcoming and do it in together in community. And so I love the have a shared meal. I think it's also critical that, you know, we are reaching outside our own circles and inviting others in and being ambassadors, right? To use to refer to the all platform, which I'll talk more about. But what better way to bring neighbors together, maybe new neighbors outside your usual social circles than through a shared meal. And so the idea is to pick 2 activities, 3 activities from some of the different buckets and combine them together, share them, talk about them, throw out some hashtags on social media. But this multifaceted, holistic approach is really important for the movement that we're creating.
I'm just like wondering, Claire, what's your favorite call to action? Are you planning one of these call to action in your own community locally?
Yes, I'm really excited about the launch of the AWE platform. It stands for Ambassadors of Welcome. This is a new unbranded virtual community space. You know, it's been wonderful to be connecting with other sponsors and other advocates and supporters, but I've really been craving like a shared central space for us to go have conversations, get connected to resources, find out more about different events going on from so many different organizations who are forwarding this movement. It's a really cool platform. I encourage you to follow the link we're going to drop in the chat, create a profile. I already did. You put your picture up, a little about yourself. There are different sections for you to connect with others by region and even drill down to your state. And so we really hope that this can be, I don't know, like a Facebook, but for welcomers to connect with each other. So I'm really excited about that action. But there are, of course, a lot of really other cool ideas on the Week of Action page.
And all of the links in the chat, and we also will share it in the follow-up email. This has been really amazing, Claire. Thank you for your energy and for walking the walk. And I'm just really wanted to hear any final words of encouragement for those joining us this week, with the hope that in the call today, people will plan their action or really sign the petition. What's easy things that you can do now, ways that you can really encourage this community to take action and join this week of action too.
Yeah, well, I thank all of you for showing up. I know what gives me hope is just the everyday one-on-one conversations I'm having in communities, again, big and small, across the nation. Americans truly want, I believe, overwhelmingly want to be good neighbors, want to be a part of something greater than themselves, and to contribute meaningfully to the world. And so pick a couple of these actions. I, of course, encourage you, sign the petition. You know, it takes a few minutes of your time to read through and put your name on the line, host a dinner, host a walk. But truly, I think the biggest thing I walk away with is connect with your neighbors, with your family, with others through this new virtual space, because it can feel overwhelming by yourself. But movements are built by us doing this collectively and in community. And so if you're looking for places to get connected, obviously CSH, you're an incredible connector. The network of welcomers through private sponsorship. There's so many ways to get connected with others, so we can forward this work.
Thank you so much, Claire. And we are really living in a very hard time and moment and world. The news always seems built so much fear in us, but really sponsorship have been personally grounding us locally, as really strengthen our own communities locally and build really a safety net of communities who really work with each other with the one goal of making our community safer and better and more welcomer. So I hope more people will join the Week of Action, but also have an idea of what sponsorship look like and take it really back to their own community. So as we thank you so much, Claire, and we have heard today, welcoming is really deeply American. We have heard it clearly from Claire and Sam, and from the stories that we have heard throughout the call. We are showing that sponsorship works. Really thankful for all of the sponsors and supporters. And we really need your help to keep this movement going. We need more Americans to step in and welcome and sponsor, as we have more Afghans, allies need to really come into our communities, and we want to make sure that they have the support they need to make it happen. We, as I said, we are sharing things in the chat and in the follow-up, but how you really can help today, take at least one action from the Week of Action guide, and commit to at least one more action this week. You don't have to do everything, and you don't have to do it all today. The guide really is meant to support you in taking action in a way that feels meaningful and sustainable to you. So whether you take one action or 5 or even 10, you are helping really build the future of refugee protection in the US. You can also share what you have learned here with someone else. When we expand our network of support, we add to the call to protect our freedom to welcome refugees and on other newcomers. And if you can, please make a donation to support this work so more sponsors can be trained and supported and more families can be welcomed. And when I say donation, make a donation to any of the partners that have been really supporting this work, in the speakers who have spoke today and the organization that they represent, and really the campaign partners, and every organization who have been really supporting this work locally and nationally. You can also donate to Community Sponsorship Hub, and by using communitysponsorshiphub.org/donate. Really, without the all private donation, we are not able to do this work and continue to stand until now. Or again, use any of the partners to really donate to them, and all of them are linked in the call to action landing page. Thank you all for being here and standing in solidarity with refugees around the world who need communities like ours to give a warm welcome as they rebuild their life in safety. And I hope you have a great week ahead, filled with action that you are taking and sharing with others. Thank you so much and have a great day.